Previously on Ballz.
Pollock, as you heard, is here with us today. Good afternoon, Mr. Pollock. Nice to have you with us.
Darren, thank you very much. Yes, it's nice to be here, and as I just said, unfortunately the circumstances with Mark Boucher, but an incredible career and just an unfortunate way to go out. I hope the eyesight is retained. I think that's the main concern. He was, I think it had been mentioned it was going to be his last tour. Maybe he did one to Aussie, so he was near the end of his career. It's just the circumstances of how he's going to go out.
Just the way it ended, as you say, and obviously, as we were saying, all our prayers. We don't know yet. As they say, it's going to be at least 5 to 6 weeks. I know he's seeing specialists and stuff, but I think from a prognosis point of view, they need the whole eye has suffered such trauma. I think they need things to settle down before they can start making some kind of prognosis as to what is going to be happening. But what a freak accident. I mean, whether he's wearing a helmet or not, we've seen balls go through the visor before, and I mean, this is not the first time this has happened to keepers. It's just that it hit him square on the eyeball as well. I mean, it's one of those very freakish accidents.
Yeah, I think it's getting to the stage. There's so much cricket and so many of these things happening that you'll have keepers full time with their helmets on. I think it's moving that way. The batsmen initially tried it, and whether they could work it out or whether it was comfortable, I think you just got to the circumstances and the amount of cricket and the possibility of something happening. Yeah, I think you're going to have to look that route.
It's amazing though when something like this happens and then a guy has to retire prematurely and all the tributes come out and stuff. I mean, I remember there was a huge debate, probably I think the last series we had, about whether he should even be there or not. People were starting to bay for like AB taking over the gloves or bringing our new sort of guy for the future in now. So it's kind of weird how people look at like national treasures, and only after something like this happens you realize how much you miss a guy, or are going to miss a guy like him.
Yeah, absolutely. I know he's been in contention for some time, but I must say I did a function about a month ago with Gary Kirsten, and I was talking about who was the possible keeper to replace Mark Boucher, and he was indicating AB de Villiers, and I've got very strong thinking. I saw it happen in the late 50s and 60s with Johnny Waite. He batted at 3, and you keep for a day and 3/4, and then you a key guy in the batting order in the first 4. It's impossible to do it, and by the end of his career he was coming in at 7, and I was just saying to Gary Kirsten, who's the next keeper? I don't know whether there's anybody good enough.
Well, there's young Dane Vilas, who started getting a bit of game time. Obviously Tommy's always been there or thereabouts in the mix, but there's a young Smith from KZN as well. His name's come up, but yeah, I mean that's kind of it.
I think what happens, people make a mistake. You need the best keeper. I don't think people realize over a period of time, in 6, 8, 10 hours, what can be missed and why you need a good keeper, and they tend to go with someone who can bat as well, saying, well, we need a bit of depth in the batting order, let's have him in at 7 or 8. I think that's a bad mistake. I think the Aussies always had a concept: your top 6 batsmen, your best keeper, and your best 4 bowlers, and I think it's worked pretty well.
The days of the specialist keeper, I mean, as you say, if you can get one that is just so damn good and reliable. But we go back to the days of an Alan Knott, or not that he couldn't bat, but I mean, he was in that side because he was just such a damn good keeper. The specialist keeper role, is that kind of gone? Do you think we will never see that again?
No, I think we will. There's so much cricket, but I just tend to think that the thinking is to go for the extra bats, and I think, especially in a test, I mean, a day and 3/4 to keep, and then to have to pad up for the last hour of the day's play, I think that's a bit much to expect. And he's a great fielder. I know it's nice, it gives you an opportunity if he keeps to maybe bring in Dumini and you add to the depth of the batting, but I think the overall picture is you need someone who's the best.
A guy like AB was so much on his shoulders now in that side. He's one of our go-to guys, if not our go-to guy now, with Jacques obviously still there. He's also always a go-to guy, but it almost looks like AB's the next guy to take over that mantle. Then if he has to carry on with the role as a keeper, on the positive side, it opens you up to, because he's definitely in that side as one of our top batsmen, so it opens it up to maybe bolster the batting a little bit, bring in an all-rounder somewhere down the order. But on the other side of it, is it too much to expect to put on AB's shoulders at this stage in these tough series?
Yeah, I think to be Test captain, maybe the 50 over, I think there's quite a substantial difference between the 50 and the 20. The 20 is really lots happening, and you're running around and people are moving fielders and everybody's getting involved and making suggestions where you should put somebody and stop that and do that. I think he's such a key contributor and is going to be for the next 5-10 years that let his batting be and his fielding be the outright contributor, and in the 20 over you can have someone to keep. I think to captain the 20 over side is hard work as well. I think he is the man, and I know they are talking about him, and he would do a great job. I've got no doubt that he would have a great following, and his knowledge of the game is good. And they're talking, in fact, quite a lot of chat about Faf du Plessis as a new guy on the block that can come in on initially maybe as vice captain of the fielding side. He's a nice guy, intelligent guy, and I think he
Talking from a test point of view as well.
I think from a general point of view, I like to see guys, if you can play test or 50 over, you should be able to play both games. You are going to get the exceptions. Maybe Richard Levy is a 20 over specialist, but I also asked the same question, that if you can play good 20 over, you should be able to put it together in 50 and tests.
Absolutely. Well, we had that discussion with Mickey Arthur the other day about Warner, who's definitely he definitely covers from 20 overs all the way through, but he's opening in the test matches, and he's one of those hit or miss guys. You know, he goes and gets 180 of 150 balls in one test, and then he won't make another run for six more innings, then comes out and makes another big one. Is a guy like that a liability, or do you just stick with him?
Yeah, it's hard to say. You know, I was just saying Aussie cricket is pretty average at the moment, and you look, Shane Watson coming in up front, he was batting at 7 or 8, then he got an opportunity. He's done pretty well opening in the one day, and you have a look at the Justin Langer and the Matthew Hayden, and you wonder why are they not doing so well. There's no Ponting in the middle. They look very ordinary, and you know, I'm still seeing them get a good hiding from England. Still believe that the South Africans are a better side than England, and despite what's happening at the moment with the Australians, I think we got a very good chance.
Yeah, and you look at the West Indies, how strong they were, and then they got into that era where, when the Courtney Walshes and the Curtly Ambroses started going, they were getting a lot. Australian cricket almost seems like, and it probably won't end up that way. I can't see it, but it almost seems like it's heading down that path where suddenly you're looking at a guy like a Michael Clarke. He stands out amongst so many other players as being on his own there. So like a Brian Lara did in that West Indies side, where he really has got nothing around him to kind of take a bit of pressure off him.
Yeah, there's a big gap. None of these guys that have come through have really made a great impression. I mean, Warner is a dangerous guy. He can put it together, but as you say, the consistency is not there. You can't do without him in the one day, but I would certainly look to a more solid technical player in Test cricket. I think they're very exposed.
Just going back to the keepers before we move on to other things. First of all, from a South African point of view, where would you put them? You've played with so many great names. You mentioned Johnny Waite, there was Dennis Lindsay, went through the Mean Machine era. There was Ray Jennings. Obviously, we had Dave Richardson coming in before Bouch took the gloves, and there were a few others as well. Lee Irvin was keeping as well for Transvaal in the 70s, and probably Kenny McEwen. So there were a couple of big names. Where would you rank Bouch amongst our South African keepers?
Look, he's got to be way up there. He's had many opportunities. You know, Johnny Waite I played in my first test in 1963, but I think Johnny was more seen as a guy standing up to the bat. He had Trevor Goddard and Huey Tayfield. He didn't have quickies. Ray Jennings was great standing back at Wanderers, where the ball really does carry, so you've got a lot of opportunities and a lot of time to get.
And he snaffled some of your catches as well.
No, I was at second stop. He didn't get quite to second.
He snaffled some of your catches,
Curry's catch. But I mean, Ray Jennings as a straight keeper was as good as any, and but I think Bouch, you know, I remember, in fact, he's quite a cocky little guy. And I was a selector many years ago, and we were in the West Indies, and he had just started, and he wasn't really keeping all that well. And we had a discussion, the selectors, and we thought maybe we're going to look at Nick Pothas, who had made up his mind to go and play county cricket. So we tried to get hold of Nick, and then Mark Boucher heard that we were looking for Nick Pothas, and he came over to Crocky and I, and he said, "Listen, what the hell are you doing? I mean, I believe you're looking for Pothas. What's the problem?" I said, "Well, you better start improving your keeping." But
We're looking
you
for
know,
options.
But I think you look at world contributors and successful sportsmen. They are cocky guys. You've got to have that positive outlook. As long as you feel it within yourself without sledging and getting it out all the time, I think that's the way to go.
So, who was the best South African keeper in your mind? Johnny Waite?
No, I was at first slip and a lot. I think the yardstick. If you're at first slip, if much gets through on your left side, on your normal right arm bowler to a right hand batsman, it's seen as the keeper's catch because he's moving with the ball all the time. And quite a few in Aussie, I was caught going the wrong way, and Johnny was looking to go down the leg side, and there was a gap between. And that seems to be a yardstick that keepers normally, nothing should go through between first slip and the keeper. And look, Johnny was in his early 30s, and he was near the end of it. But I think standing up was probably as good as any. But Ballz standing back, probably the best.
And the best worldwide?
You
It's still
mentioned
to
his
this
name,
day.
Alan Knott.
Alan Knott.
Absolutely. I did a world side about a year ago, and I had room for one Englishman, I think it was, and it was Alan Knott. And as you say, he in fact did make a test 100 or 2 or 3. So coming in at 8, he did make that contribution. And if you need him to stick around, he had to not get out. That was his main job. If someone's there and got runs on the board, he's just giving the strike to the guy. But Alan Knott certainly took some incredible catches.
I think most cricketers that have been there, and I mean, not even having played with him, but would say Alan Knott. The other one that comes up quite often, though, but obviously guys going back a previous era, would be Godfrey Evans, who would stand up to Michael Holding, I think, if he was playing as his keeper.
He was. I actually played with him in the International Cavaliers in 1969. A wonderful guy, great sense of humour, but very quick at standing up the stumps. I think you've got to be a bit quick whether those bails have come off on their own or whether the keepers had a little nudge on them.
Okay, little pad
just
nudge.
a little pad, how's that? And no replays and reviews. And off the guy says, "Oh, am I out? Yeah, you out? Off you go."
One of those, the golfing leather wedge. Johnny?
Graeme, how did you earn the nickname Little Dog?
It started when I was in Port Elizabeth. Ethel McKinnon was in our side, and Peter, when he appealed, evidently sounded like a dog barking. So he got the name of Big Dog, and then I assumed Little Dog, and then it went to Schweinhund, which was the German version of Little.
Yes.
So a lot of my PE guys, I say, "Hello, Schwein," and the Joburg guy said, "When did you ever get that name?" So there was Little Dog and Schweinhund, all from the Eastern Cape.
There we go. I didn't even know you had that nickname, Little Dog. I just thought it was always Jeeps, and that was it. There was no others.
No. That the PE was Schweinhund, and every time I see someone, they do say, "How's it, Schweiny?" And so there we go. It all started Ethel McKinnon. Peter was sounding like a big dog barking, and so I got the
nickname Little Dog.
Yeah.
When you were at grade junior, you were aged just 9. I mean, people must have been so impressed with you, because I think you took a whole lot of wickets there, and you also scored about 117 runs not out. You took all 10 wickets, didn't you? In fact,
No, I did. It was in fact they've got the scoreboard book in the old grade club in Port Elizabeth. It was 1954, and you can see it was a little young guy scoring because all the surnames were spelt incorrectly. I think I was Polok. So I'm going to say, no, that's me. That's still me, although the spelling is so out of line. But it was Union High in Graafrenet in 1954. It was an under 11, and I remember I hit 6 sixes in a couple of overs, and there was a cemetery next door. So I had to go and help and go and find the ball in the cemetery. You know, you've got to do things on your own.
no.
I won't do that.
Okay, it must have been a dead
I
rubber.
It was a dead ball.
A dead ball, literally.
Yes.
But I mean, my memories of you go back to I don't know. Did you ever remember the game Ballina? It was
I
a
did,
cricket game.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
As a light, you remember sitting playing Ballina. We always used to have our sides and stuff, and I was highly upset because obviously you were quite a stalwart for Eastern Province, even in that game for me. And then suddenly we heard you were heading up to my team. And I was kind of upset because I'd already established you as a member of the EP team now, so my whole local league at home had to change around as well. But then the move up to Joburg and Transvaal. How did that all come about? Was it a collective sort of
It was only actually I was going to retire from cricket.
Because there was rumour, I think you were coming a couple of years earlier, but it just nothing ever happened.
No, not really. It was just a straight business deal. I had got as far as I could with the group that I was with, and they said, look, come to Joburg. I didn't think that my wife then would be keen to leave Port Elizabeth, so I hadn't really pushed it. And then when I said there is an opportunity, she said, yes, let's go. And I remember I clashed quite strongly initially. Eric Rowan was still alive, and he said, Transvaal don't need Pollock. And I said, I don't actually need Transvaal. It's the most hated side in the Currie Cup.
Yeah.
You know, in the 1970s, everything happened, and whenever anybody had to say something, it came out of Transvaal. And we down in the Eastern Cape, you sit there as these little guys, just part of it, but having no contribution. So my initial was I came to Joburg on a business point of view, and the advice I got, I remember just saying, if you want to make yourself known in Joburg, you join the Wanderers Golf Club, you join the Old Heads Cricket, Kevin McKenzie and Old Heads and Lee Barnard and Huey Page. It was the only club really that didn't offer me any money to play club cricket, and I ended up there. It wasn't the factor, it was just a lovely setup and nice guys. And I had 10 wonderful years, longer than I had anticipated.
And you've stayed. I mean, you've literally
I played
stayed
till
up
87, from 78 to 87, and we had a great side. I think there was only one guy in the Old Head side that hadn't played Transvaal A or B. So we won pretty much most of things, and it was a nice clubhouse, you know, a nice social club.
I think I remember actually there was a Premier. I think it had just gone into Premier League, but it was Premier League game. Because I was as a lighty, I was playing at Wanderers in those days in first and second reserves, and there was a game. I think it was either Wanderers or Bedford View playing against you guys, and it was like the entire national. It would have been like the entire national team playing in a club game, club cricket on a weekend at Old Eds. That day, I mean, the lineup of names, because you remember they used to put the scoreboards in the newspapers of club cricket in those days, and you looked at that scoreboard and you go, these sides would probably challenge some of the national sides around the world, and they were playing a club game on a weekend. I mean, you will never see that ever again.
No, we used to get at Old Heads on a Sunday afternoon.
Well, just go through your side when it at sort of at its
we
peak.
had Dave Seckham and Ray Jennings would open, Lee Barnard. I think Kevin batted 3. I think Lee, if he looks at his career, made a mistake. Mr. Nice Guy let Kevin the opportunity of batting at 3, and he came in at 5. So he wasn't getting all that amount of opportunity, and Kevin then, in fact, when I first came in 78, Lee was the middle order player in the Transvaal side, and then Kevin took over. He'd had a good batting at 3 at Old Heads. And then I was at 4, and Barnard was at 5. There were so many guys. I think Pat Flanagan was in Alistair Hubbard, Albie During, Viv Grieve.
Pat Flanagan ended my cricket career.
Oh, did he? Okay. What did he do?
No, he stopped playing, and he was at Pat was at Old Johnny's at one. I think when he went after he retired. Wasn't he playing Old Johnny? I think he went to Old Johnny's, and I'd managed to claw my way up to first reserves at Wanderers. Alan DaCosta was the other guy. Him and I were, because I was a keeper. Him and I were vying for the 2 sort of places below Premier. And Pat Flanagan came, and he was playing in a first reserves game for Old Johnny's ones. He had us, I think, at 9 for 5 when I walked in, and I got a first ball. I promise you, this thing must have pitched at least a foot outside off stump and knocked my middle stump over. I didn't see it at all.
No,
that was the end of it.
That league was, my first game was against Jeppy, and at the end of the second innings, I got a beamer. Oh, so welcome to Joburg League.
But that is Jeppy.
Oh, I don't know about that. But guy Ian Donaldson, and a lovely guy. We only needed a few runs. It was getting a little bit dark, and he gave me one hand to head, and I got out of the way, and he tried to half apologise, and Alan Curry was a slip saying, listen, don't apologise, you know you meant it, type of thing. So that was my first game against Jeppy, but it was hard cricket, and was the reason why you have to play Saturday, Sunday, good cricket to be able to play 3 and 4 day cricket. You can't play one day a weekend and think you're going to play good cricket. That's an impossibility. And Transvaal cricket was huge for certainly the 10 years, and it kept me going. I was going to retire, but it was so professional, and Ali and Albie During were running the admin and the players, and starting with Dave Dyer, then Ricey as captain. it was so professional, and everybody just knew what they had to do, and it was nice to be part of it.
As Dr. Bacher said when he came to visit us a couple of weeks ago, he doubts there would have been any. Actually, a lot of people would love to have watched the game between that Mean Machine side and the West Indies of that year, because it would have been a hell of a contest. I mean, that's how good that side was. Graeme Pollock is with us. We'll carry on and give you a chance to have a breather and finish your coffee, Graeme, and we'll wrap things up with you in about five or so minutes. Not in a rush, are you? Still visiting the Wanderers regularly?
No,
Sipping on the cokes we hear these days,
I
eh?
have been. I want to say, sort of quite. It's been pretty good. I don't know whether I'm feeling better or not. But I haven't had a drink for 16 months. I've lost 12.
Graeme.
That's awesome.
12 kgs, and so it's a little boring, this 5 to 7 session when you go to the club and you're not drinking and you're having a diet light and you're hearing all what gets spoken in that session. Well, you know what you used to do in the old days.
Exactly, yeah.
But I'm keeping it going. I'm feeling good, and it's nice.
That's good. That's great to hear. But still a loyal member of the guy. You're still playing golf, by the way?
No, I've got a bit of a shoulder injury, which I have to go back, and it was a car accident I had in Cape Town in about 1985. I was driving in Muizenberg. We had a little bit of a party with Messrs. LaRue and Stephen Jeffries, and at about 2 in the morning I decided I better get home. I borrowed a car, got on the Muizenberg motorway and did a little roll, and ended up in the middle of near the Alphen Hotel. And I think now 25 or 30 years later there's wear and tear in the shoulder.
Started to come back.
But Ricey wasn't happy, because we had just played Western Province and we were going to play the second leg of a one day against Natal that weekend. And I said to Ricey, I'm buggered, I've got to go home. And he said, no, you're not, you're coming to Durban. I walked home in the breakfast, they were all having breakfast. I was in slip-slops, I didn't look so good. But I didn't get a great reception, so I insisted that I go down to Durban just to keep it going that I was going to be okay to play. And then I left, and we lost the second leg on the Saturday, and we lost the third leg on the Sunday.
On the Sunday. Wow.
So I was not so popular.
You weren't a popular man.
Not at all.
Yeah. Graeme Pollock with us.
We the best on 3. 1, 2, 3. We the best.
2 p.m. to 6 p.m. Mondays to Fridays live on Ballz.co.za. Ballz.co.za.